That's ready. Here we go. Okay, welcome to the marketing trench. Today we're going to be talking about the right questions you should be asking yourself. And we've talked about this in the context of CRMs, and when we promoted this, we did talk a little bit about CRMs. But what we've noticed is that people tend to get hung up on tools, and we're tool agnostic here. But still, like, tools matter, and there are reasons for choosing tools, but more importantly, there are reasons for using tools and how to use them well, and that comes down to asking the right questions. So that's as much framing as I'm going to be able to give, because Ricardo has been reading a book, and the book is really the launching pad for today's conversation. So with that being said, Ricardo, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and what it means to ask some of the right questions?
So what's funny is I think I actually got this from Ramit Sethi. So he wrote a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And the context of why or how he brought this up is one of the questions somebody asked him was, my bank is changing the interest rate from what I'm earning in interest from like 0.8% to 0.6%. And so his premise was that, asking or panicking around which bank should I switch to get a better interest rate is the wrong question to be asking. You should be asking, how can I save an additional 1%? Or how can I, put aside an additional 1% every year, year over year? That's going to bring you much better results than worrying about, which bank is the best bank because I'm going to get a better rate.
Tenth of a point on your savings account, right?
Right. For a point on your savings account. And so, contextually, I thought about all of the conversations that I have in my meetings. And so when I go from appointment to appointment, it's almost always kind of a similar question. It's, hey, what's the best CRM? Like, which one has the best features? Okay, but does it do this? Or, hey, what's a good website provider? And, I always ask, I try to put it back, well, what's your budget? Like, well, it doesn't matter. Are they any good? And so, to me, when you put the tools before the strategy, you're headed down in the wrong direction. To me, the correct answer to that is, who cares? Who cares what the best CRM is? Because if you don't have any data or you don't have any idea for what you're going to email to different segments of your database, then it really doesn't matter. You're asking the wrong question. And a good website doesn't matter because you have people that are paying right now $500,000 a month for a website provider. And what are they getting from that website provider? They're getting zero because they don't have any original or unique content, and they don't pay for paid ads to drive traffic to the website. So to me, the whole context of this conversation was we have to stop putting tools before strategy, because if you don't have a foundation or if you don't have the fundamentals in place, then the tools don't matter.
Yeah, when you brought this up, Ricardo, I was actually really intrigued because, we see this so many different ways, just either being in the tech space and dealing with, the tools and the strategies that we deal with, but even just dealing in our business. We right now interest rates are really low, and you'll get all the time, you'll have people say, well, I knew somebody that got a lower rate. Or I saw something that said it was a lower rate, but it's that backstory on how you get there. And I think this translates so well because you're right. In our industry, it's a multi-billion-dollar business selling things to real estate agents and loan officers, right? The real estate conferences, they sell a ton of stuff to people. And what everybody's selling, it seems like, is a tool. So you need this website. This website's going to do the right thing for you. This CRM is the right CRM for you. The cynical answer is always the right one is the one that you'll use, right? But it seems like there's something that's being lost in the translation. It seems like these things sometimes are sold as solutions. So I think people want easy buttons. Right? All they're hearing is, this is the result I'm going to get. This thing produces this result. But like what you said, what's the right CRM for me? Well, that's a really good question. How much data do you have? Well, I have 300 records. Okay, cool. Are those your past clients? Or where did you get those records? Oh, it's a title data. I got it from Ricardo. So, okay, cool. What do you want to do with that data? So now you're starting to go down the path of the real question
formulating a strategy.
Formulating a strategy, backing into a strategy. That's why I always tell people, listen, use the tool until it doesn't work for you anymore. Mm-hmm. If you can push it so far that it no longer does what you need it to do, then you're actually using that tool, and you can probably find one, and you'll be more than willing to pay a little bit extra money for it because it fills in the gaps that the other ones are missing. But as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, what are some great takeaways? What can we leave people with that are watching this? Because asking the wrong question is a huge problem, because there are people out there that are willing to give you the wrong answer. Right?
Unfortunately.
Right. And so how do you know? I mean, how do you know if you're asking the right question? How do you know if so why don't you walk us through, because you get this literally every single day, and I got harassed because I posted your copy. We get this question every day, and my buddy Chris, he's like, "Who's we?" And I'm like, "Oh, Ricardo wrote that."
The royal we.
We us. But kind of talk us through what those conversations are like.
I mean, what I tell agents now is like, I want to send a text, email. I want to send a text and email blast. I'm like, okay, to who? We need to paint a picture of literally who's your customer avatar. We talk about this in marketing all the time, right? Building your buyer persona. Who is it that you're creating content or who is it that you're trying to reach? Because your messaging is going to change depending on which segment of the market you're trying to communicate to. There isn't just a blanket text and email blast that you send out and boom, magically you get a listing.
You don't build your buyer persona.
Well,
do you have like a form you point people to, or are there a series of questions you
ask? But I think that's the question you need to ask yourself. You need to ask yourself, what segment of the market am I trying to reach? If you're trying to say, like, I'm just trying to get new listings in a blanket market area, like, I don't think that's a very compelling value proposition. To be able, what are you going to say? You're going to go to the market and say, now's a great time to buy, interest rates at a historical low. Like, that's the same, I don't know, same boring messaging that we see realtors spew all the time. But if you get very specific, like, there's 3 different data sets that I tell realtors they can go after right now. What if you just focus on talking to people that are thinking of downsizing? We talked about this when we were talking to Tyler from Cole. You can target downsizers in an area. You can, get data that says, show me 2-story homes where they lived there for 20 plus years and have over 80% equity. And then now you have a marketing campaign where you're speaking specifically to their pain points, or you can start to draft or craft a marketing campaign speaking to that segment of the market.
So you got the downsizers. Who are the other 2?
Or you have, let's say right now, there's a lot of people that own condos and townhouses who might be working from home, and they realize, holy crap, I'm going to shoot myself if I have to do another Zoom meeting from the closet. This cozy little 2-bedroom condo actually isn't that big for us anymore. We really should consider getting a bigger space. So what if you target people that have lived there for 2 to 5 years? Yeah. And then Scott brought up a very good point. But what if you target people who live there for 2 to 5 years and are, a perfect opportunity for upgrading their living space? Because home after a pandemic probably has a new meaning now. How many people are considering that, I actually do need a lot more living space, or a much bigger living space? So I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways to get creative with data. And I think we need to put a lot more thought and strategy into how can I reach a very specific segment of the market rather than blanketly saying now's a great time to buy.
So to Scott's question, how do you know if you're asking the right question? One way to know is you ask yourself, who are you trying to talk to? Building your buyer persona, as you put it. That's the right question. Why is that? Okay.
I would back up even a little bit more, and I would say, what ultimately am I trying to accomplish? Because there's something at the very, very forefront of this, and it probably looks something like, I want to talk to more people that are thinking of buying homes, or I need to talk to people that are listing homes. And then you form it, because you got to know what the strategy is. Then you've got to know what your messaging is. Which segment of that group do I want to talk to? And then at the very end, you piece in the tools. What's the most effective and efficient way for me to communicate with this group of people? Do I have to door knock? Because you can door knock if you want to do a farm. Or what if I want to do Facebook ads? Okay, cool. If you're already door knocking on that farm, and then you target that farm with some branding, so your face is just showing up with no sales pitch, now you're reinforcing that relationship that you're doing offline and online. And that's how you bring in solutions. You weave solutions into your strategy, because the reality is tools and technology only make what you already do more automated, or it augments or amplifies what you're doing. It can help get your voice out to more people. It can streamline the process, and it can automate some aspects of the conversation. Like the automated texts that go out. Ricardo and I were just talking about a feature that LionDesk has, right? So when a lead comes in, it'll send them automatically. It'll send them out text messages. You just have to be there to answer the text message. So that's a great example of a tool that you would use to make it a little bit easier to have more conversations. But your goal is to have more conversations with consumers. And I think that's what people miss with marketing.
I don't know, man. I feel like this. I feel like what you just said, it's a bit of a blunt instrument, and here's why. Because if I were to go back to the question that you just posited, which is, what am I trying to accomplish? Well, obviously, I want to get. If it were me asking, obviously I want to get more escrows. Now what? Right? That doesn't really help me. Like, I have to be a creative person to be able to know how to go from that, like, I want to get more escrows, to something like what Ricardo's talking about. So if I were to run this exercise, I want to, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm trying to get more escrows. Okay. Who's your real estate persona? Well, now I'm going to fabricate something out of whole cloth. I only work with the top 10 agents in Newport Beach, and I only handle the escrows when they're selling a home at $15 million or greater. Right? Like, but we laugh, but isn't that? But you guys would, first of all, we all do it, right? Like every person who starts in this business, all my sales reps have always done this. I only want to work with Newport Beach agents. Maybe you do, right? You don't. I understand why you wouldn't want to work with, I don't know, agents that are far away from you or something. But like, why are you choosing Newport? Right? In other words, we start with the most luxurious thing. Or if you're a real estate agent, I hear this all the time. Well, I only want to work with people who are selling luxury homes. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Why is that like a bad? Like, where are the bad questions in there? How do I go from what I think we would all agree are, people who are thinking at the $10 an hour level to the $30,000 level? How do we do that?
Well, the $10 level is, can I buy leads of those people? Mm-hmm. Right. That's the $10.
Why is that the 10?
Because you're trying to buy a solution. Somebody says, you're looking for this persona. I have people that are ready to list and sell their home right now. All you have to do is subscribe to my service and you'll get access to people that are listing and selling their homes. Right.
Yes.
So that's the, because if that's great, but now, so what are they? They're probably names and numbers. First of all, it doesn't exist, but it does exist. Let's say so the perfect example is Facebook ads, right? I want to do ads. I want to talk to certain people. Okay, that's great. Why? What are you going to do with the information? Do you know what your script is going to be? Do you know what your conversation is going to be? Do you know how you're going to bring value? How you?
And most people don't even go that far, is my point.
They want the leads, and then they come in, maybe they'll pick up the phone and call one.
When they don't get the result, that they were looking for, they have an excuse for why it didn't work. The leads are bad. The leads are no good.
The question was wrong. The question isn't how do I do Facebook ads? The question is, I need to have more conversations with this type of person. Is Facebook ads the right place for me to start to have those conversations with my consumer that I'm going to do business with? That's a more accurate question.
Okay, but why is that the more? So you're saying that, I think, because you've been down this road, you've run thousands of dollars in Facebook ad spend, and you've made mistakes. So you know from experience why that's a bad question. But if I, having run very few Facebook ads, when I think about running Facebook ads, I don't know enough to know that that's necessarily the wrong. So what are the questions that I can be asking to of myself to know that I'm asking the wrong questions?
So if you do not have a contact and engagement strategy already in place, you do not want to run Facebook ads. Unless you're literally going to call each one of those. And now those aren't $10 questions anymore. That's $10 an hour work that you're doing. If you're following up and calling these leads and calling them one at a time. What this really comes down to, Dustin, it's not necessarily about the Facebook ad. It's what are you going to do with the leads once you collect them. And there's so many parts to this. If you don't have a place to put them, let's say, for instance, buyers. I deal a lot with buyers. People trying to sell their home is a little bit more difficult to target on Facebook. But let's say they're buyers. A lot of people. First of all, most people that are going to buy a home that are willing to click on an ad on Facebook are probably not buying a home tomorrow. They're probably very early in the process, right? So most of your ads, any leads that you buy, it's unlikely that they're ready to do business with you tomorrow. And if they are, you're probably not the only person that they're talking to. So it's
okay. So wait, I'm gonna put the spotlight on you, Scott, because you're talking a big game here. So I want to see how this works for you.
I just painted myself into a corner, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Now, pin your ass to the wall. So now, so let's just assume for a second that you have found me through a Facebook campaign. What's an example of a Facebook campaign you guys are running right now?
All right, I'm going to turn the tables on this because I realize that we're rabbit holing down the wrong thing. Well, you came.
Are we?
No, listen. So why do you want to run Facebook ads, Dustin?
No, I'm asking you why. I want you to show us what the process is.
So here's the question. The question is, and here's the conversation. This is the $30,000 question. Is I need to buy leads. Why do you need leads? Because I need more deals. Okay, cool. Are you regularly communicating with your past clients? Are you asking for repeat and referral business? Because going back to your past clients is going to get you another deal this year way faster than buying leads is. So if you're asking to buy leads because you need to do more business, my first question is, how good of a job are you doing at getting everything you can out of everything you've already worked for? Are you spending time in the community, or did you join the local chamber of commerce? Are you involved in any local charities in your community so that you're building relationships outside of your profession? Are you going back to are you communicating with have you been calling your past clients every month during coronavirus just to make sure they're still okay, right? Just to make sure, I'm just checking in with everybody. I know this is hairy times. By the way, did you know there's a foreclosure moratorium? Did you go forbearance? Did you do this? So there are 9 ways that I would try to get more business before I would run an ad on Facebook. But the problem is most people think that that's the place that they start. Most people think I need more business. Maybe I'll run some Facebook ads, right? And I'll get some names and some phone numbers. And names and phone numbers are great if you have a machine that chunks out that pushes out qualified buyers at the other side of that. So So the kinds of ads that we're running right now, we're running a lot of buy versus rent ads. Why, you should be looking at buying. Why are you paying your landlord's mortgage payment? If you can pay his mortgage payment, you can pay yours. Check it out. So we run that kind of automated, but then we've got, and we talked to Daniel last week, so I'm sending them to Verse. And I'm having them follow up on them. We're not spending any energy on that. We're having them follow up and then return people to us that say, yes, I'm interested. I'm verified that I'm interested. Here's what I want to do. So that's my machine. My machine is it comes in, it goes through a drip, it goes through a contact scenario that I don't have to think about. I don't have to think about whether my telemarketer is going to come in today. I don't have to think about when the lead comes in. I've solved that problem, because that particular issue is contacting cold leads, which is a really, really difficult problem. So I guess
so let's just for a second, let's pause. Let's just acknowledge that Facebook ads, we for whatever reason, we've latched onto Facebook ads.
Yeah, it's not.
So let's just acknowledge Facebook ads are, they exist in the universe of possible things that you would spend money on, and there are contexts in which it makes sense to do.
A bus bench. Should I spend $1,000 a month on a bus bench?
Bus bench. Yeah. But the more interesting thing you're trying to drive us to, that I hear you trying to drive us to, is the strategy part. So, for example, if you are spending money on Facebook intentionally, so if I click on a rent versus buy and I fill it out, the next thing that happens to me is Verse contacts me. Is that right?
Yes.
And Verse asks me a series of questions that you have predetermined.
Yep.
What are you trying to find out from me?
Did you really fill out the form, and do you really want to talk to somebody about buying a home?
Okay. Yes, I do. So we're role playing this. So yes, I do. I'm a renter, and you know what? Market interest rates are really good. I have a little bit of a down payment, 5%, and I'm ready to buy a home in Orange County. So I have that text exchange with Verse. Now what happens?
I feel like we're off the rails on this. I mean, what happens specifically on that is they are either going to do a live transfer over to me or a loan officer, or they're going to schedule an appointment on my calendar. But really what I'm getting at is this isn't about leads. Every question that anybody ever asks, well, me, because I do this techie stuff, so my peers ask me all the time, hey, what about this tool? What about that tool? But Ricardo's job is literally helping people understand these tools. But the problem is none of these people want tools. They just want an extra sale.
They want the outcome.
They want the outcome.
That's why I'm role playing this. It's because I feel like, so what we're telling people is a $30,000 question is having a buyer persona. It's having a strategy. And right, so far, that's what we're telling people. Yeah. Okay. That's straightforward, but what does it really mean? And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to exercise how you, Scott, because you think strategically and you've put in a strategy in place. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to prove out how that works. So I clicked on your ad, and then Verse approved me, and then they sent me through to you, and now I'm talking to you, and now you and I have a conversation about the fact that I'm a renter. I've got 5% saved up, and I want to buy. And now what? You qualify me? Is that what happens next? We go to pre-qual.
Yeah, if you're ready, you're going to pre-qual. If not, I'm putting you into a nurture tool. I use a FinLocker as a tool that I use for first-time buyers to create budgets and monitor their credit and do that kind of thing. Or I'll throw them into a home bot so that they can track properties. If you're a realtor, you're putting them into your IDX so that they're seeing properties on a regular basis so that you're dripping to them. If you're not ready now, that's where automation allows you to have some sort of touches over long term that you really don't have to pay that much attention to. When they're ready, they'll raise their hands again. If they're not ready now.
And so I'm just going to say it. I feel like most people are one and done. I tried calling that lead. It wasn't any good. And that's it. There's no automation. There's no adding them to HomeBot. There's no adding in the FinLocker. I tried ads. They didn't work. Now let me try Google ads. And again, that's the wrong, I don't know. I feel like that's the wrong strategy. Or that's
Well,
the
so
wrong,
it's interesting because see, Scott has FinLocker and HomeBot because people are at a certain phase of this process that he's mapped out. And so maybe the question, like Scott knows exactly what he's trying to accomplish with me as this person going through this system at any given point. So maybe another $30,000 question, in addition to do I have a buyer persona? Another $30,000 question is, why am I doing this? Whatever this is. Why am I spending Facebook money? Why am I spending HomeBot money? Why am I spending Finlock money? And the answer should be something along the lines of, because this is the person I'm talking to, and this is the problem that I'm trying to solve with them.
Either you're solving a problem or you're just staying in touch with them. And again, this is the purchase scenario, but it's also not the only thing that you do. I mean, if you're talking about leads, again, leads are on the very bottom of the list of places you should spend your energy in order to grow your business. There's probably 10 things that you can do. The way that your teams are structured, whether you have a team or whether you don't have a team, what you're doing with your existing database, what you're doing with your existing clients, your existing sphere of influence. This kind of goes all the way back to, I think our first episode was the 4 control framework, those 4 areas of your business that you have 100% control over. You don't have control over Facebook ads. You don't have control over the communication that people are going to have. If you have money, you can get names and phone numbers. But when you're running Facebook ads, you have to understand that's all you're getting. If you're spending money to get names and phone numbers of people that may or may not be interested in talking to you about your service, that is something that you almost need to set it and forget it. That's not something that you actually do. You don't run ads and then sit there and wait for one to come in and hurry up and call it when it comes in. You're thinking that you're doing it wrong.
I think we said it at one point before. The ads are supposed to create opportunities, not cash commission checks.
Correct. All any advertising does is get you closer to a conversation. In our business, we make money by having conversations about what we specialize in. And that's either buying a home, getting it, qualifying for a mortgage. That's how we make our money. We don't make our money doing anything else. So our entire job, all roads lead to, I want a conversation with a consumer that has questions about what I'm an expert at. And I think too many people either just completely lost Dustin or, but I mean, I think too many people think I need more business. What's the cheapest and quickest way I can get more business? And they think that's buying leads or running ads when it really isn't. It's going back and loving on the people that you've helped in the past.
I feel like we're falling back on easy answers. That's why I keep pushing hard, because look, I totally acknowledge. Let's just stipulate for the rest of this conversation that throwing money at ads without intention is a bad idea. And let's also stipulate for the rest of this conversation that people do it all the time.
Okay, right? Fair.
The promise of this podcast
absolutely fair.
The promise of this podcast is that somebody who's inclined to do those bad things can ask better questions, and those better questions are going to make them more money. And so what I'm trying to get at is how to ask those questions, or if we can't tell them how to learn to ask those questions for themselves, then let's give them 5 good ones or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to talk about Facebook ads anymore and why people do them wrong.
I think it should be literally the question you need to ask yourself is, what's going to be my strategy for this? If I'm going to be throwing a lot of money at print, great. What's going to be my strategy for trying to capture or trying to monitor an ROI that I'm getting on print? One strategy might be you put a call tracking number on every piece of direct mail that goes out. That's an excellent way to measure an ROI on that. But I think a lot of times we throw campaigns together, or we think, I want to do this campaign without taking anything into consideration with regard to the strategy. And that's the problem.
So here's an exercise that is sort of a thought exercise that I think people can do, and anybody with kids is going to understand this. It really is just the why waterfall. So I want to do this. Why? Well, because it'll do this. Why do you think it'll do that? So if I were in front of somebody and they were to say, I want to run Facebook ads, I'd say, why do you want to run Facebook ads? Well, because I need this. Okay, why do you think you need this? So one of us would do this, but you can do this to yourself. You can ask yourself this question and just play it out. It's an interesting thought experiment. Keep asking yourself why until you come to a conclusion that you're comfortable with. I think just questioning your own thought process can get you there. I think it really can, but I don't think people take the time to do that. So you should be able to drill down to at least 5 whys.
That's good. I like that.
On every single question.
I mean, 5 layers deep of why?
5 layers deep of why. Why do I want to do this? Why is that important? Why this group of people? Why this tool? So I think that's one way that you can kind of do it. And I think mentally I'm constantly doing that. Anytime I'm looking at a new tool, like I said, I have a certain test. It can't put my data on an island. It has to be able to communicate with the other tools. There has to be some sort of automation to it so that it doesn't require you manually inputting it. And I want to work with companies that I like, right? So companies that I like, newer companies. I like knowing the owners. I like being able to talk to management and those kinds of things. It's important to me, the vision of the leaders of the company. So I have those types of tests, but like how I got to Verse was we were generating these, we had these leads and we were generating all of these leads. We weren't paying for them. We're getting them organically. Well, I say we're not paying for them. I've been working 13 years on it. But we get a lot of organic people that come in. I didn't feel like we were doing a good job of following up with the leads. Okay, so are the leads bad or are we doing a bad job following up with the leads? Okay, here's this company. Should I use Verse? Well, why would you want to use Verse? Because leads come in all days. Okay, leads come in all days. That's great. Oh, and the other thing is, I'm not sure if my person's really calling them as many times as they need to, right? So these kinds of things, and I've never bought a tool because I thought it would change my business. I've only bought tools because I thought it would make my business run smoother.
That's interesting.
But it does seem like a lot of people are asking, well, the $1 million question that Ricardo got, actually the $10 question, this isn't even a $30 question, that Ricardo gets constantly is, does it work?
Yep.
Right?
Will it work for me?
Does it work? Well, I recommend this CRM. Well, does it work? That's the wrong question.
Yeah. Well, Scott, that statement about not buying a tool because it would change your business, but buying a tool because it will make your business run smoother. As soon as you said that clicked like a whole bunch of things in my head. The light bulb went off and then it exploded and then fireworks happened behind it. It was like a Trump rally. Stop. Anyway, but seriously, why? The reason why is because that, like, I have been there so many times where I'm like, I just want like more business coming in. This thing over here is going to be the magic button I push, and what's going to happen is when I push it, everything is going to magically, like, really what it is business is going to flow in, right? And I don't have to do anything. That's sort of the unstated implicit assumption is somebody else is taking care of all this stuff. But what that subtle shift is to running smoother is I'm doing work. There's turbulence or there's rough spots in the road. How can I smooth the rough spots in the road? In other words, I'm still doing the work, but maybe it can be easier if this thing was fixed, right? And I love that because the impetus still on me to do the work. And it demands that I know what I'm doing, right? Because I'm doing the work. It's not like if I push a button and stuff happens, I don't have to know how it works. I couldn't tell you how my iPhone works. I haven't a freaking clue, right? Like at a high level, there's a motherboard in here and electricity runs through it. And it talks to a light device that is on a screen and like, you know, and that's how this works. That's all I know, you know, but God, that's not going to get me employed at Apple. You know, like engineers at Apple are asking a completely different set of questions. They're asking the question you just said, which is, how can I make the iPhone run smoother? And they have a sophistication about their business, about the product in this case, and they know what the problems are, and so they're tweaking. I just love like that right there. That's a $30,000 question. That question of how can I make what I'm doing already run smoother? That's a $30,000. That's brilliant.
Well, and the goal is always to not do all of the things yourself, but monitor the systems that handle all the things for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're starting to make good decisions. How does this fit into what I'm already doing? How is this going to make it that much more efficient, that much more, you know, it's, I wasn't sure where this conversation was going, but it feels like that's kind of it feels like that's a good, I think we played it out. I mean, I feel good about where we ended with this. I wasn't sure what the solution was, but I think that really is what it is. And I think the answer for most people, because again, I can't think of a single tool. Like if you go to a conference, and it's been a year since we've been to conferences, but every single booth, they tell you how much more business you're going to do. Right? Right? I mean, I've never seen anybody try to sell something that doesn't say this is going to make you more money. Right? This is going to increase your business, or this is going to grow your business this way, or this is going to allow you to talk to people without even having to try. You know, people are just going to be, you're going to be baby bird. You're going to be laying there and deals are just going to fly in your mouth. You know? So, well, you know what this ultimately comes down to, too, you guys, is this comes down to running your business like a business. You know, and this is a hard shift for a lot of entrepreneurs to make, because a lot of entrepreneurs feel like they have to do everything themselves. But when you can get out of your own head and you can build systems, and you can build, you build a tech stack and you build systems so that there's automation. That's a tough step for a lot of people to make. I mean, that's a hard thing for people to do, but that's really what it is. How does my business run if I'm not here? Another good thought experiment, right? How does it run if I'm not here? And then you'll start finding tools and tactics and strategies that just work on automatic, and you just have to make sure you have people ready when it comes out on the other side.
Ricardo, is there anything else in the book you feel like should be surfaced?
No, I mean, I think that was the crux of it. It was instead of focusing on so much on, I just think we need to put the strategy before anything. I think too often we're chasing tools, we're chasing tactics. And when you ignore the strategy or you put the strategy second, that's when you kind of set yourself up for failure. Mm-hmm. And maybe we do it intentionally because, we don't want to do, maybe we're doing it because we want to avoid doing the work. Maybe we're doing it because we want to be able to give the excuse that, oh, I failed because that tool didn't work and that tool promised it would, solve my problem.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be a fun conversation for another episode to talk about actually what a strategy is, because I don't think it's actually that straightforward. We use the word like everyone knows what it means, but I bet if you were to ask us to write down the definition of a strategy on a piece of paper, each of the three of us, and the camera, it would look different.
And I think it should. I think strategies are customized to you and your business.
Well, I don't mean like what my strategy would be. I mean, what's the definition of the word strategy? Right.
Yeah. Good.
And so I think that would be fun to dive into, because one of the things, so strategy and objective are not the same thing, for example. if you're like, well, my strategy is to close, an additional 3,000 escrows next year. It's like, well, that's not a strategy, that's an objective, right? And so, but people confuse that a lot because now they're like, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a bunch of money on Facebook, right? Like, well, okay, maybe, probably not. You talk to Scott, he's going to hit you over the head. So yeah, I think that'd be a fun future conversation. But for this one, I really love what's come out of it. The why waterfall, the whole idea of saying, what can I be doing to make my business run smoother? Asking yourself, have I built a client persona? These all feel like fantastic $30,000 questions in my opinion.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. All right. So if you enjoyed this podcast, you're probably crazy. But if you did, you could listen to some of our sister podcasts over at the Real Disrupt Podcast Collaborative. RealDisrupt.com is where you find a list of the different podcasts available, such as the Open Mic podcast presented by The Mortgage List with Ginger Bell, or Marketing Interrupt with, I don't know who, but it's on here. You can find all of these podcasts on RealDisrupt.com. And also you can find us on Facebook. We have a little Facebook group. We'll be doing stuff with it, but you can always post questions, comments on the episodes, whatever. And if there's a topic you'd love it for us to address, please post it in there because we're desperate for topics. Awesome. All right, guys. It's been good talking with you. Until next time, this has been The Marketing Trend.
Yeah.